Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 88 of Cisco Unplugged, your show for all things wireless. I'm Dan Clammert, your host here, back with Al Dumdye. How are you doing, Al?
Hey, good, Dan. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. You made it back from Vegas.
I made it back from Vegas. I have a day or two to recover now, right? So
That's good.
it
That's
was
good.
it was a busy time. A lot of
Yes,
fun.
it was.
I kind of felt like this was, I don't know, I don't know if it was the best, but it was certainly a really good year for Cisco Live. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of really good announcements and that sort of stuff. If you haven't seen that already, there's all sorts of publications around that. But I just felt like people that I ran into were generally in a fairly good mood. You know what I'm saying? It's like customers coming into the booth and stuff like that were genuinely interested in
yeah,
things. And, nobody was, I don't know, it just seemed like people were happy.
yeah. It did seem like there was good energy and a lot of
Yeah.
excitement. I agree. Yeah, and we had our session. We had a lot of fun with that one. So, and if you're watching today here, and if you were there, thank you for attending. If you weren't, we'll hope to post that here when we post the Cisco Live content, so you can check out what we did in Vegas and taking live questions like we do here on the show typically. But it was dedicated to all the entire session was addressing questions, and we had what we called the Titans of Wireless there. We had some heavy hitters on the stage, and it was super fun. So we
Yeah.
unfortunately, though, ran out of time to address all the questions. So we thought we'd do a little schedule shift here. And this is not the session of talking about groups in the campus gateway. So that was what we originally were going to talk about today, but that is going to be in an upcoming episode, I think July 8th, so a few weeks out. But so today we thought we'd bring back Al, and we also brought in Ian Prosick. Welcome, Ian. How are you doing today?
I'm kind of the man behind the curtain here today. Our normal producer, Tom, is out and about, so I'm kind of
Yes.
running the show in behind the scenes here, but I'll be happy to try and poke my head in a little bit and answer some questions. If you throw me one or two, I could probably handle about that much.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Pulling, we'll go easy on you. We'll try to go easy
all
on
right.
you, and, since you're pulling double duty. But
Yeah,
appreciate you being on the
absolutely.
show, and always great to have you on.
And
Thank
maybe
you.
just a quick update on like Maxwell's equations before we get started or something, Ian, if that. Uh,
So yeah, before we get rolling here, just a few reminders. We do use Slido. We use Slido during the session. This is a separate Slido. This is the typical one we use for the show, and we do take your questions live. So if you'd want to join the Slido, you can join via the QR code on the screen, or you can always click the link below the YouTube video stream and join the Slido there to answer any question or ask any questions you have. We'll try to answer those. But we do have a list of questions that we didn't get to, so we'll be addressing those here first. But we are also streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/@getunplugged. And if you go out there, like, subscribe, more subscribers, more likes would get. Hopefully, this helps the channel, the show, reach other people, other fans of wireless Wi-Fi out there to, So, and again, I'd ask you too, if you like the show, tell a friend. That would also help get the word out and you know get more people to see our content. So we do also have a schedule of upcoming episodes out there on our channel. So it's the first link below the kind of the title bar. You'll click that link. You'll see the schedule of upcoming episodes here, what we've got on the docket for the next month or so. So I guess without further ado, let's get unplugged here and start getting to some of these questions that we had that
yeah,
were,
full
yeah,
disclosure,
yeah,
when we started this session, uh, Dan and I had put together about 10 questions, thinking just in case we don't get questions, that we could ask some questions. So we were prepared, right?
yes,
I
we,
I
we, we
never
we have to, yeah, you always have to be prepared, I guess. We didn't
yeah.
want to just sit there and stare at each other, that
I, Yeah,
would.
about halfway through, I just kind of interjected one of our questions so we get some value out of the questions. But the questions came up in this group just rapid fire. It
Yeah.
was fantastic.
And to be clear, these are
Um,
not those questions. These are actual
yeah,
questions that
right.
were,
We're not going to ask ourselves the questions
yeah.
we were going to ask. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
we had a great audience.
No, we had a great audience. We had great feedback. And I think one of the other pieces of feedback, other than that they loved the content, loved the kind of the premise of the show and the session, was that, hey, we need more time. So that's why we thought, let's do this schedule little switch here. We'll answer the rest of the questions, maybe the additional half hour or so that we could have used there in Las Vegas at live. And hopefully next time around, we'll get a little bit more time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Perfect.
with that, let's
All
get
right.
into it. I know Oakley asked a question around roadmap. I know we don't usually talk about roadmap here on the show, but was talking about Wi-Fi 7 outdoor access points and what we've got coming there. And I know we talked a little bit about the 9177, but I know that that is coming here, right?
Yeah.
Soon.
We did, and of course, it's also in our Cisco Live session. We kind of give I don't have one here to show, but we do show that on that last week's session,
Episode.
the
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
session. But in general, the 9177 comes in three flavors, just like we used to do with the 9124. So the 9124s have always been a really big workhorse for us. The problem is they don't have 6 gigahertz. And so we had a 6 gigahertz outdoor AP, but it probably didn't check all the boxes, if you will, that the 9124 did. Well, now we have one that checks all the same boxes as the 9124, but it also does outdoor, right? I mean, it also does 6 gigahertz, sorry. So we now have that 6 gigahertz capability in a full 4x4 outdoor AP that you can use external antennas. There's an omni version. There's a directional version, just like we used to have with the 9124Ds, right? So we have a kind of a complete portfolio there now. And I really feel like this kind of rounds out the overall portfolio from an AP standpoint. Like, I don't know of any particular AP. We've got the low end starting the 9171 all the way up to the high end, the 9178. And this gives us now the outdoor component in all three flavors that we were sort of missing in that portfolio. So I think this is a big, gap filler, if you will, for that 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi 7 capability. We'll have the full complement now with that.
Agreed.
And I think since it's a roadmap, I think the question came up around sort of when we're going to deliver this, right? And my understanding is, and I'm not committing to anything, but it's going to be around fourth quarter or something like that, calendar year.
Yeah.
So is the expected time for that. So
that's what I've heard
Like
as well.
we're in beta test mode right now, right?
yeah,
So
as soon as I
customers are
get mine,
still
we're in
under.
beta test. I don't have my beta units yet, so we can't be in beta test until I get mine.
Oh, yeah, well, that's true. Exactly. And those who've participated in betas in the past know that you actually sign an NDA when you're
Yes.
in beta. So even though we've announced this thing, people know it exists. The specifics of it, it's kind of like when you watch car reviews online, like the horsepower and torque figures come out later on. So, you have to kind of wait a little while here. That's typical, right?
Exactly.
About 3 months before we actually get product into customers' hands, we're running it through its paces with customers in their own labs and even in production in some cases.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That's good. So next question we had was from Curtis, and his was about the Cisco Apple design guide that we produced a little couple, I don't know, years maybe back here now at this point, probably several years, more than a couple, on 5 gig Wi-Fi design. And he's asking, or maybe commenting, isn't it time we produced a new one highlighting the 6 gigahertz band?
And I, talking with some of the other members, we've been chatting offline. I think everybody feels, Curtis, that was really a good comment, and should be taken to heart. There's a number of things with 6 gigahertz, even things like MLO, right, and how that operates with the Apple clients and that sort of stuff that I think would be really good to update that design guide on. And I think we've got most of the information now with the test groups. One of the things I typically do before my session at Cisco Live is I sit down with the test group and kind of go through the state of the union, if you will, from a device standpoint. And it's made drastic improvements from last year. So I think, and Apple's a part of that, obviously. I think this is, now a time to start really looking at how this, not just 6 gigahertz, but 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi 7 with MLO, that kind of stuff, and Apple. So yeah, that's a really good suggestion.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, the next question was from Anonymous, and I hope not a hacker group Anonymous. I always picture, the mask and the dark room.
We'll just call him Anon.
Slido uses Anonymous. But anyways, they're wondering, how do you resolve enterprise guest deployments while ensuring reliability when there is such variation in devices, software, user knowledge?
Yeah, I think what this is really getting to is when you get into guest deployments, especially as you get into 6 gigahertz, you have to offer WPA3, right? So that's OWE, opportunistic wireless encryption. So when you do that, how do you manage to use the older WPA2 clients, and how do you do the WPA3 clients? And in many bands, or security methods like WPA2, WPA3 Enterprise, we could offer something like transition mode. Transition mode doesn't work well for those open guest sort of SSIDs. And so what we end up doing is really doing two SSIDs. One that is for the WPA3 that offers 6 gigahertz and maybe other bands like 5 gig. And then one that's more of a legacy SSID. There is always a bit of a struggle in terms of trying to get clients to join the right one, because now it's somewhat up to the choice of the client to join the WPA3 versus the WPA2. And if you're a WPA3 client, you can still select and join the WPA2. Obviously, if you join the WPA3 and you get to 6 gigahertz, you're going to have a much better experience. So my experience with this is I used to work on Air Force One, and I think we've talked about this before, and lots of really sophisticated communications equipment, and I probably can't get into all the other details. Of course, my experience is, well, it's more than 20 years old now. They changed models.
Might have had an upgrade or two along
Nothing I'm
the way.
telling you is that you can probably read about it in archives. But the one thing that would always delay the aircraft in delivery was the paint, right? Because the paint always had, everybody's an expert in paint, right? There's everybody that walks around the aircraft could find some little bump or some little drip. Well, that's kind of the way it is with naming SSIDs. When you have the two SSIDs, what really becomes important is the naming the SSID. The only warning I'm going to give you is you'll probably have a lot of help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Including, I see sometimes help from some of the fans and that sort of stuff, right? In comments, and so
Yes.
you'll get a lot of help in naming those SSIDs. But that's really what becomes mostly important. Then is you can offer these two SSIDs. You just have to come up with creative ways to make sure clients will try to join that 6 gigahertz SSID.
Yeah. Well, especially in all my years of supporting higher ed customers, you really learn a lot about just some fun names of SSIDs as you go into campuses. And
Well, some of them you definitely shouldn't use.
yeah, well, we can't share them all probably on the
Some from the dorm
family-friendly
rooms.
show here, Unplugged. But definitely learned some
Exactly.
things from that as well. But one other thing I should mention too is I forgot to mention at the start of the show is this isn't just our thoughts. We did bounce all of these questions off of the Titans panel. So this, no offense, Al, this is not just Al and Ian and
Oh.
not myself answering questions. I'm more asking the questions, but so we had a good discussion, a really good discussion on this next question around, I think it was cellular networks and Wi-Fi with the panel. But unfortunately, a lot of them, like we said, we couldn't afford. The joke was we couldn't afford to bring them back here. This week, a lot of people are also doing other things this week, taking off after Cisco Live, taking a breath, catching their breath. So
You got to remind
Well, we had them on
people,
right before Cisco
Dan,
Live.
yes.
of the original title we were thinking of for the session. Started with men.
The
Men
men
with
with mics.
Yes.
Yes, men with mics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Men with mics are expensive, apparently.
that was the working title at least, but we ended up going with something different. Yes, but that was from a slide for the I was making for the session. PowerPoint does this thing where it'll generate kind of ideas for the slide or whatever. And I noticed that the comment below the slide was men with mics because it was a bunch of our interviews from live and around live where we're interviewing people like we did last week. And we got a good laugh out of that one. And we forgot to bring that up last week as well on the show. But maybe we'll change the name of the show to Men with Mics.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well,
But
in response to the cellular question,
let me ask it first. Don't respond until I ask the question.
I thought you did.
Sorry.
Okay.
But so Vidar was asking, looking 5 to 10 years out, get your crystal ball out here, Al and Ian. What do you see as far as cellular networks? Do you see them replacing Wi-Fi in the enterprise, or will they continue to complement each other? Was the question.
So my take is they will absolutely continue to complement each other. I don't think, and I try to encourage that kind of thought when you look at like large public venues and that sort of stuff, is don't think of it as one or the other. The fundamental communication is around signal to noise ratio and bandwidth, right? That's what provides your total capacity, if you will, in a venue. And when we add Wi-Fi or we add cellular to whichever one you want to think of as adding, we're adding fundamentally more capacity in that venue, which means everybody's going to have a better experience. So I would break that into kind of two different camps. One camp is special needs. So there are cases where you could have Wi-Fi for the public in the venue, for example, but maybe you have private 5G for ticket takers, security, operations, that sort of stuff. So they're on a completely separate set of spectrum. They're on different devices, things that and the cellular or private 5G or 5G tends to be a little bit wider area coverage than Wi-Fi. So I don't need the capacity in this case, but I do need good coverage throughout the building in that case. And so it's a great application. And we've done some segments on this before where we had some of the private 5G guys on and talk about some of these applications like that on some previous Unplugged episodes that if you want to go into more detail on.
Yeah, episodes 70 and 77 for those viewers out there that want to reference those or look those up. That's a good call out, Al. While you were answering, I was quick searching those episode numbers.
You know what? I'd also say, Al, like the spectrum is spectrum. The more of it I can get, the better for the application.
Yeah.
Right? And you think about the average concert or event these days, it's no longer downstream. I mean, this is actually, in a lot of cases, higher upstream consumption that we had, in the past, right? It's certainly changed with all the streaming and whatnot.
Totally.
Everybody wants to upload their video to show them where they're at the concert or whatever, or at the big sporting event. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of brings us to point two. So point one is special needs, special use cases for each one. The other is just, let's say, the public use. So if I have publicly available carrier cellular and Wi-Fi, somebody that's on the cellular is their bandwidth is going over cellular. That means Wi-Fi is better. If the people that are on Wi-Fi, their bandwidth is going on Wi-Fi, that's going to make cellular better. I mean, I think we've all been to venues before where you can't make a call, right? You can't get a call out. Well, the two together are better than any one, right? So now you can have a good experience on either because the bandwidth is split across that. And just as Ian was saying, bandwidth is bandwidth, right? And so having that additional bandwidth from a cellular standpoint is valuable, or having it from a Wi-Fi standpoint is valuable. So. And as far as the 10 years goes, I mean, this is not 10 years out. A lot of things could change in 10 years. I will tell you from a cellular standpoint, there's a couple of things, from a Wi-Fi standpoint, there's a couple of things that are going on that may impact that discussion. Obviously, as we get into Wi-Fi 8 and even into Wi-Fi 9, it becomes more about reliability for the signal, lower latency, more repeatability. The other thing that comes into play is the use of additional spectrum. So there's work going on in like the 60 gigahertz range and that sort of stuff, which is very small areas and that kind of stuff. But it may come into play in high demand for capacity and in local area networks and that sort of stuff that may additionally add use cases into this dual capability. So stand by for more.
Yeah, that's good. All right. I hope I don't butcher this next name, but the next question is from Ibikuno, and it's around what do we do or what can be done about dead spots when placing APs at recommended locations in Ekahau for full coverage?
I would call Ekahau up and ask them to fix their software. No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, Matt.
That's right.
Matt, Troy, come on. What's going on?
I'm not exactly sure what black spots are. I assume that means areas with poor coverage.
Yeah.
And I think areas with poor coverage, man, there are so many things that can affect that, right? It can be walls, it can be just layout of APs, it can be how you're using
Elevator
antennas,
shafts.
elevator shafts.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do planning, it's much deeper than just covering the spots, right? You need to really engineer boundaries from a handoff standpoint. So as you're looking at these tools, the RF design planning tools will all allow you to look at your primary coverage, your secondary coverage, how many APs are covering each area, that sort of thing. Um, it's way more than just, is it covered or is it not covered? And when you're doing the design work like that. And then
Yeah.
of course, trust but verify, right? You're
Yeah.
going to do your planning up front. You want to make sure
Yep.
you do a plan that shows you the right amount of coverage. And we don't probably have time to get into the whole discussion around handoff and boundaries and cell edges and that kind of stuff. But make sure you're looking at that and knowing what devices, like for example, we know Apple devices will generally start to scan at about minus 70 dBm, right? But they're
Mm.
going to look for a signal that's 8 to 12 dB better before they're actually going to hand off. And there are things like that we need to understand the behavior of as we're designing these cell edge boundaries. And of course, one of the big things that can help with that a lot is directional antennas, right? Because directional antennas can
Mhm.
help signals to roll off
Yes.
before they at the boundaries before you get these kind of sticky client issues and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that goes into that question, and it's a lot more,
Yeah.
I think, than probably just, is it covered or not covered? If you're looking,
Yeah.
is it covered, is it not covered, that you may be missing some areas of the design. And then, of course, verify, right?
Yeah, well, and I think you touched on it there right at the last comment, verify. And I attended Jim Florwick's session, and I think it was Wednesday afternoon, and he made a great point. I mean, he made several great points during his session, but one that is relevant to this topic was around just the verification. And, he was giving an example of a customer coming to him was like, okay, well, I've got two buildings. They're the same building, they're the same layout, but Wi-Fi is not working in one of them, for example. It's like, well, are they really the same? Have we gone and verified and actually measured? I don't say measure the same as measure like he does, but that's key. Going and actually getting the data and seeing how the RF performs in the environment is key, because how do you know what's the different construction materials was the cause in his example between the two buildings,
Mhm.
the same exact layout or blueprints of the building, but the construction materials were different between building A and building B. So that led to different RF coverage in
Yeah.
propagation in building B from building A. So
And
I'll
you can
give
have
you
and
an interesting
so
good.
yeah,
example.
I just thought I'd add a comment there too, Al, since according to the
Yeah.
scores, apparently I also am on the technical level
Oh, right.
with
Right. And just for
Jerome
those
Henry,
that,
which
yeah,
clearly I fooled some people with
for those of you that attended, Dan wanted to thank you for rating him so high
I did
on
want to
the
thank,
knowledge
yeah, I did want
category.
to thank the audience for being very, very generous, very kind.
So
Sorry, Ian, were you going to chime in
interesting
too?
little story from up here, actually,
Yeah,
in healthcare. So a lot of our hospitals, at least the old hospitals, would have wood walls and really thick wood walls because in a
yeah,
hospital you're mounting things and hanging things on the walls all the
sure.
time, filing, whatever, big posters and stuff, medical equipment.
Yeah,
Now, given the price of wood in new construction, a lot of these hospitals have moved to actually steel stud plus like an aluminum or tin type of backing. So now
yes.
you've got all your walls essentially that used to be somewhat transparent, generally now are like a Faraday cage. So
Yeah.
Mm.
in a building that you've designed, people that work in healthcare have designed buildings like this for decades now. And now they're having to rethink the density, and this is really, really challenging because obviously signals like this aren't going to go through a metal wall, especially if it's skinned on both sides. So,
Yeah.
challenges, right?
Yeah. So we can't assume, I guess, is the message here, because building A looks the same as building B, or, it was built by even by the same contractor, to your point, Ian. Maybe the materials changed because of construction costs or material costs or
The other thing that you sometimes see is localized effects, right? So you think, well, this is a ceiling, I'm just hanging access points across the ceiling. Well, there can be ductwork in there that's nearby, other metal objects nearby the AP that can affect, maybe they're reflecting the signal. And so what you find is that it's not always exactly the same, even though just intuitively you look at it and say, yeah, it looks exactly the same. Now, in general, you have enough margin on your designs and that kind of stuff to accommodate for most of that, but still, best way to know for sure, verify.
All right. So Mo asked the question, from interacting with customer issues and troubleshooting, what are one or two strategies or technical aspects you wish wireless engineers would understand in depth?
I'm going to quote Javier on this because I think if there's any one person that is absolutely the best in terms of qualified to do this, everybody on that panel could definitely answer this. But this is what Javier does day in and day out.
Yeah,
right?
he does it exceptionally well too.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of somewhat read this. If it's client related, understand onboarding, and he kind of goes through the different onboarding phases, the scan. So how does the probe response, how do I join, get the initial contact, and then authorization and association, and then the whole layer 2 authentication, the 4-way handshakes, key plumbing, DHCP, layer 3 addressing, learning, how do I get, what else needs to go to get to the run? Am I in the run state? So all of those client states along the way, understanding the client states in the wireless network, like the IP learning versus run states and that kind of stuff, understanding what that means in terms of what's going on from a client standpoint. So I think that's a great answer because it really, for client issues, that's a key, understanding. The other thing, obviously, I think that's important is understanding, like, is it, what are the commonalities? Is it that entire floor? Like, is it everything hooked up to a switch? Is it just one AP? Is it the same AP all the time? Is it different APs? Is it the same client type? Anything that you can understand up front about the problem will help you a lot in terms of where to start troubleshooting and that sort of stuff. So I think commonality is another one. Take time to sort of understand what's the implications of this problem. What, how far reaching is it? I think that's usually a big one in terms of troubleshooting also. So
yeah, I think he summed it up well at the end, where he was basically saying, layer 1 RF design. Like, if your RF is, the foundation is bad, there's no software features you can turn on to mask or fix that.
Yeah.
And that's going to include interference, Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi interference, right?
Correct.
That's something people overlook.
Yep. Let me just make sure I'm clear on what you just said, Dan. So you mean all the AI in the world is not going to fix a bad RF design? Is that what you just said?
No, physics are physics. You can't.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love calling that out. It's like you can't fix a bad design.
No.
I mean, we have all kinds of tools are constantly improving and that sort of stuff. And, AI obviously is a big part of where we're headed, and there's a lot of value there, but it cannot fix a bad design. It can help you with the design, corrected design, but it can't compensate for that. So.
Yeah. Speaking of tools, Chad Wilcox asked, what's your favorite RF design tool?
What company does he work for again? Are you sure he doesn't work for like Akahau or Mina or something?
I didn't see. Great question.
They all have. First of all, they're all very capable. There's not. There's
just like my children. I love them all for various different reasons.
Some more than others. Is that what you're going to say?
Well,
no. Get you in trouble here.
Exactly. Nice try though.
But there's strengths and weaknesses of each.
Yeah.
I won't go into calling out the different things.
Yeah.
I would say, go look at them, try them, see which one you like. Um, they now both have tools that you can use. They're very complete. In Mina's case in particular, they've got a very small, lightweight tool that's of interest to you. Of course, Ekahau is a very comprehensive tool that you can use. The sidekick, the clip was the Hamina, the sidekick for Ekahau, right? And these are great tools, not just for collecting data from a site survey. So, you may site survey your building once in a while, but they're also great tools for collecting spectrum data, right? And it's real common that, especially I like to say in manufacturing, Ian and I had this discussion prior to my session. It was like, that's a huge problem, right? And Ian's like the expert at this. He's always got a spectrum analyzer out someplace looking at something, right? And having that capability from these tool sets is absolutely important. And both of them have that capability. So, but yeah, I have both.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you need both, but I have both. And depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I use one, sometimes I use the other.
And we have interviews from live last week where we talked to both Hamina and UC and Jerry from Hamina, and that's always a riot, a fun time.
Yes.
At least their clocks were working properly this year, so that was good. But then we also caught up with Matt and Troy and Mickey and the gang from Ekahau, and would encourage you to check out those interviews as well on the channel. I know that I don't think I've posted the separate Hamina interview yet, but it was part of our live stream last week.
I'll just kind of summarize the interviews. The interviews basically were that Cisco is the best in terms of Wi-Fi. Isn't that what it was?
Their favorite.
Yeah,
Yes,
their favorite.
their
Yeah,
favorite.
based on their analysis.
Yes. Yes.
We tried to trip him up and get him to confess during the interview.
Well,
His wouldn't bite.
UC was busy making a music video. I don't know if you saw the Heat Map Boys video. So definitely a good watch, a fun watch if you have a couple of minutes sometime.
Matt, because he's got that accent that you're kind of like, he knows what he's talking about. Matt could say anything you wanted to, and he sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
Exactly. He's a pro.
I was going to say a shout out to these folks. They make a fine coffee mug.
Oh, there you go.
They do. They do indeed.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Swag from the trade show floor.
Yes. Yes. And some shirts as well. So, yep. All right. So Chad Freeman asked, what is the biggest mistake you continue to see in high-level enterprise networks?
Let's see. What is this? So actually, we got a couple of different answers from the Titans. One is bad configurations. I'm sorry, Ian. What did you say?
I was just saying bad, outdated client drivers. Stuff that's ancient.
Oh, yeah.
The classic answer.
I would.
The old standby.
Yep. Not using it. So Javier says bad configurations, not using proper features that don't match your business needs, like not using fast transition 11R, 11K, 11V for handoff, right? And changing things during troubleshooting to see if it works instead of focusing on the root cause. So just kind of shotgunning, that sort of stuff is a mistake that he often sees. Jim's comment was kind of the comment we had earlier about verify, that a lot of people think, okay, well, I did the design, I don't need to verify it. And then they find out later on that they've got problems and don't understand why. And so I think that's a good comment. I would say the other thing that I typically see, and this is in not just, I know this one was enterprise networks, but networks in general, maybe even more in public networks, is just making it hard for clients to join. I see that so often. I like to say it's a tale. I'm going to give you a tale of two airports. I'm not going to name names or anything, but let's just say one is in the top three, one is in the bottom three. From a design complement, what's deployed, almost equal. All right. So there's scale of 1 to 50. One's in the bottom three, one's in the top three. Using pretty close to the same hardware, using pretty close to the same coverage.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's in the top three has a wide open network. It's very easy to join. You click on it, you're in, right? The one in the bottom requires all kinds of information from the client that they want to gather that,
And I
they
got to watch three commercials,
watch three commercial
videos. Yeah.
videos. It's the same. I mean, if you were to look at it now, the other problem that the bottom three one has is because those clients are joining, they're probing, right? So they're just probing the heck out of their network in there because they don't want to join. And I see this over and over. It's like it's back to the paint job again, right? Somebody's decided that they need to add all kinds of controls into this authentication. I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand how one airport could get by with wide open and the other airport has to have all these authentication, right? In this
Sure.
particular case. So again, I'm not going to, I will not answer the names or anything like that. So don't ask me.
Yeah.
But I love to see that pointed out because I think that is such a perception on how Wi-Fi is, our onboarding experience is so important to our overall Wi-Fi experience.
Sure. Good point. Yeah. So Chris asked a question around, we've got like three more questions. In a non-Wi-Fi 6, I'm assuming he says 6E or means 6E and 7 deployment in a corporate office, which scenarios would you recommend converting a 6 gigahertz radio into another 5 gigahertz radio?
You know what? I suspect that answer because we don't convert 6 gig into 5 gig. Uh, so let's address that in terms of which. So if we're talking about 2.4 to 5 or something like that, then
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Again, my comment, Dan and I were talking about this a little bit ahead of time. My comment with that is have a strategy if you're going to do that. Just converting, having two 5 gig radios overlapping in the same areas, is not that impactful. In fact, it can create more interference and that kind of stuff. Make sure you have a plan, if it's a separate channel that you want to use certain things on or something like that, that's different. But, just kind of overlapping radios isn't as valuable as, of course, like in the 9179, we have two 5 gig radios, but it's two separate spot beams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very controlled. There's a strategy for that. So I think that works well. In terms of should I get to 6 gigahertz? If there was a heck yeah, this would be it, right?
Yeah.
I mean I always say scale of 1 to 10, getting to 6 gigahertz is an 11, right?
Do
Any
it.
way you can get there, get there. I mean, just look at again, the physics of it, right? We go
Mm-hmm.
from 21 channels to 59 channels. You get almost 3 times the amount of spectrum going to 6 gigahertz, right? And you don't have to give up your 5 gigahertz. So that's the other thing we kind of failed to mention is all those users that were on 5 gigahertz that are now on 6 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Sure, they're having a great experience because they got wider channels, less interference.
Exactly.
But the guys that are on 5 gigahertz that no longer have to contend with half the users that are now on 6 gigahertz, they're having a better experience. So
Exactly.
yeah, they don't have 6 gigahertz capability, but you've just helped them by getting the 6 gigahertz clients on the 6 gigahertz. And so I think this is a huge one that, like I said, I when I talk to clients and stuff like that, it's like I can't emphasize that enough. It's like I've yet to have somebody come back to me and say, "Man, going to 6 gigahertz was a mistake." It's like
Yeah. Exactly.
not a one to a T,
Now,
right?
didn't we cover this as part of or a discussion in the room about, like, I think Matt mentioned it with Bottle Rock, right? And the adoption on 6 gigs there was
Yes.
like 48%,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that's
Yep.
just general mobile devices and the kind of stuff that people are walking in with, but still, I mean, that's indicative of the take rate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think the slide Matt and Josh put together was like it started at 11, wasn't it? 11. So year
Last year.
before was 11%
Yeah.
6 gig. This year 48%. So
Yes.
I think Matt made the comment it was a good Christmas.
Exactly.
Christmas, birthdays, whatever in
Whatever.
between that
Yeah.
those 1 year
Upgrades.
events. Yeah. So, but we are definitely seeing that, right? We're seeing that across the board now with the client adoption and these public networks is approaching 50%,
Yeah.
which is great, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
So,
All right. Yeah. So in summary, I guess more spectrum, the better there to answer your question, Chris. But so Jason asks, we have is a university customer. We have an environment of 9166 APs and other Cisco varieties, and we are looking to be early adopters of wayfinding. What advice to a university could you provide for placement, AP placement? I'm assuming this university is a 50 plus building campus.
Okay. So, you know, because they're 9166, that means they won't have the ultra wideband. So we'll take ultra
Correct.
wideband out of the picture. And
Okay.
the one comment I'll make about ultra wideband is with ultra wideband, again, have a strategy if you want to do that, right? Because
Hmm.
ubiquitous coverage of ultra wideband is probably not the way you want to go. I'm not going to say it's not. But if that's your strategy, that's fine. But most likely you're going to want to have targeted ultra wideband coverage because it's so precise, right?
Yeah.
But it also means the density has to go up to
And we
do
did
that.
talk a little bit about that with Dave Benham previously on a, planning
Yes.
for,
Yes, that's right. We
planning on
did
his
plan, and
show.
we've done a number of shows on ultra wideband. In fact, we've
Yeah.
had Google on with
Yeah.
regards to
True.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some great material if you want to learn more about ultra wideband. But in general, I think so that leaves two other technologies, BLE
Hmm.
and Wi-Fi, right?
Hmm.
And Wi-Fi, of course, has been around for a long time. The downside to both of these technologies is they're RSSI based, not time based. So
Hmm.
they're affected by obstacles. They're affected by, when you put something up to your head, for example, right? They can be affected. The big advantage BLE has over Wi-Fi is really twofold. One is generally BLE is a smaller radius. So just in terms of if you think of the example I like to say is 6 dB is doubles your distance in free space, right? Well, let's say you have 6 dB of fading, right? Now you wouldn't necessarily have 6 dB of fading everywhere, but let's just say you have 6 dB of fading. If I'm 10 feet away, well, then that's plus or minus, 5 feet, right? If I'm 100 feet away, that's plus or minus 50 feet. So the just that fundamental error scales as you go out,
Hmm.
right? So it's physics again, right? You just you don't have the accuracy with that. The other thing that makes a difference, and again, if your cell sizes are smaller, that helps. The other thing that makes a difference is update rates. So oftentimes, what we use to do location is probes, and clients can, if they're happy, it can be 5 to 10 minutes between probes sometimes, right? It can be a long time. So if they're moving around within that cell area and they're happy, they're not probing, right, until they
Hmm.
get to that minus 70 or minus 75, depending on the client itself. In
Yep.
which case, then they start probing, and we see now they've jumped over to this location, right? So there's inherent issues with RSSI. So just from an expectation standpoint, you don't want to say, hey, I'm going to be able to tell which students are in which chairs with the RSSI based technologies. Just not going to be that precise as physics. Um, there are fine time measurements, but fine time measurements, the problem with fine time measurements, that just so everybody's probably aware, but this is a Wi-Fi based, time based measurement.
Hmm.
The problem with that is it's in band, right? So now you're taking up your capacity to make distance measurements and that kind of stuff. And so generally we don't see that used a lot from client location. That's generally used for like when we do AP auto locate and that sort of stuff. So we don't generally see that. But and then of course the other big thing is so spacing of the APs like we talked about helps with this. The other big thing is angular dispersion, right? If you have to have a good angular dispersion of other APs around there to be able to pinpoint that. You can think of this as circles lining up, and if you're in a they're all in a row, effectively you have this huge ambiguity. You don't know if that client is on the right side, the left side of that row of APs. When you start to just put them around displacement around that client all the way around, right? Then it becomes much more accurate from an overall location standpoint. Ranging is ranging, but location requires accuracy, the angular dispersion rather. So sorry, maybe more depth than we wanted to go, but
Yeah. So I'm
Episode
hearing,
17
I'm hearing call
is
Al for, for help with this.
I can tell you, I spent many long days and nights in a very large convention center exploring these things
Yes.
with hundreds of access points on a ceiling.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a little bit about kind of the density for UWB previously on episodes, and I don't know if you hit on like for BLE and that sort of thing as far as density placement. I know that we've also talked about I don't know. I think it is probably on the show, but also on the Ekahau webinar we've done previously or recently, like, using planning tools for
Yeah,
location placement and AP placement is also, obviously something to help with
right,
as far as your AP
right.
placement as well.
Yeah, with BLE, the update rates are higher. You may have to, reduce your cell size a little bit to get enough APs from an angular
Okay,
dispersion standpoint
sure.
to get good location. But yeah, the planning, both Ekahau and Hamina have,
Hmm.
Hamina is probably more about at least last time I used it, was more about the number of BLEs overlapping in one area.
Hmm.
Ekahau probably gives you more of an accuracy standpoint, but both are sufficient for doing planning for something like this.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so last question here was from Greg, and this is a doozy here. So we saved a tough one here for last. We've got, what is your preferred methodology for Wi-Fi capacity planning in stadium environments? And should the designs be based on total seating capacity within each section, ensuring coverage and potential service for every seat, or an expected take rate, concurrency, adoption percentage, sizing the network based on the anticipated number of active users? In practice, designing solely for a projected take rate may reduce the number of APs required for capacity, but can leave gaps in RF coverage and limit the ability to serve all seats if actual demand exceeds forecast. Conversely, designing for fully seated capacity often drives a higher AP count and greater cost, but provides more comprehensive coverage and future scalability. How do you balance this trade-off between coverage-driven and capacity-driven design? And what factors ultimately determine the appropriate design target for stadium deployment? So a shorter version of the question would be, how do you balance the trade-off ultimately
Yeah.
um, between coverage-driven and capacity-driven design, and what factors determine the appropriate design target for a stadium deployment?
It's like
Ooh,
the
I'm going to come
universal
up
I,
for
equation.
air. I'm going to come up for air after that one.
yeah.
Okay.
And I've heard Matt and Jim and Josh all talk about this also is don't design your network around the numbers you had from a poorly designed network previously, right? So just because in your venue, let's call it an arena, whatever, you
Yep.
had a limited usage of the Wi-Fi with your previous design doesn't mean it will be like that if you put a good design in. So
Yeah, so better
the
build it, they will come, I think is what they've said
yeah,
before, right? So
yeah,
yeah.
just yep, that's a good part. And then I think the other question is, and this is always a bit of a trade-off, is cost, right?
Sure.
Um, Beyond that, we have to understand sort of what the budgets are. We
Yeah.
typically, and I think this has been kind of the standard for many years, is about 100 clients per radio ish, right? 100 seats per radio ish. So if you've got, and this was really more around 20 megahertz bandwidths and stuff like that. So as we get more 6 gigahertz, that's going to start to change, more and more. But the that's kind of was the starting place for this. But again, a lot of this comes down to, I mean, if you've got unlimited budget, then you may even want to go less than that, right? To really try to target. If you've got a very tight budget, we may have to extend that a little bit. The other thing that can come into play is what are the options we have to cover that, right? So if it's a very high ceiling, for example, it may just not be possible that we can get that sort of look angle or get that coverage. We may have more overlap, that sort of
Hmm.
stuff, than into the seats than what we would have wanted
Hmm.
ideally. Um, and if you get into underseat coverage, then there's a lot of variables around the design of the seating, how escalated everything, like the size of the steps, the number of clients around there, the construction of the materials, all kinds of things
Yeah.
that can affect that, right?
Yeah.
And again, those are all necessary design options in some cases, but and so that in that case, it may be less, in terms of clients per radio, that sort of seats per radio, that sort of stuff. So
But let me
a
just
lot
ask a
of
follow-up to that around
yeah,
stadiums. Are you seeing or have you seen other options other than, I guess, the main ones I can think about are over the shoulder where, the antennas are behind you and kind of overhangs or whatever. There's the racetrack where you've got kind of the built-in antennas in the arm rails or whatever between sections or whatever, or then under seat as well. Are you seeing other options out there for design?
I'm not aware of anything at this point. If you say overhead handrails and under seat, those are the three things. I mean, there's always odds and ends that
Sure.
that might be for a very specific location, but those are the three that really build the construction in general. I think where we can, the desire is to get overhead and face out. Right? That's your best option if you can get overhead and face out because you have the least amount of interference into other areas.
Sure.
Unfortunately, when they build stadiums, they don't build them for Wi-Fi mounting points, right?
Correct.
So we have to kind of take what we can get. So that's where things like over the shoulder come into play. Things like up. And the challenge, obviously, for people that have done this is all old news. But like you can't just mount something in somebody's line of sight, right? They're there to see an event,
Yeah.
not there to see the APs. So that limits where you can mount things.
Yes.
Otherwise we could just put them on poles and stick them up there and just point them at the crowd, right? It's like y'all are having a great Wi-Fi experience. Hope you don't care about the event.
Exactly. Yeah. Probably
uh,
would be frowned upon.
yeah. But in general, we have to kind of go with what the venue, allows us to do. And I think we typically would say overhead first, handrail second, under seat as the third option. But it's again, there's a lot of that's fairly
Gotcha.
gross estimate. We say that there are other things that come into play on that.
Nice.
So.
Nice. All right. I think that's a wrap here. Ian, Al, anything else you'd like to add or?
No, I really enjoyed that session we did. I was just the mic holder basically, but I I felt like everybody in that session was really the people that were participating from the panelists were
Mhm.
all very engaged and really trying to answer the questions in the best they knew how. And I felt like the people in the audience were asking great questions. So
Agreed.
I love the questions because a lot of the questions weren't exactly what I expected. I expected more sort of the one question that I asked, just in case anybody's wondering, off the list was, should we use uplink multi-user MIMO in a
Oh
high
yeah.
density environment and that kind of stuff? Just sort of a kind of almost like call it a high tech question, just to see what the panel would say. But a lot of the questions were along the lines of, hey, I'm either getting into this or I've been in this for a while. Could you help me with this? And
Yes.
man, I love that because I mean, I
Oh yeah.
think to a T, everyone up there loves helping people, right?
Exactly.
And so I mean,
Agreed.
I do it again in a heartbeat just because it was a great experience, and
Yeah, one
hopefully,
thing it just reinforced to me was it's just like this Wi-Fi community or this wireless community is kind of it's a big but also yet somewhat
yeah,
small community, tight-knit community, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes
yeah,
sense, but saw a lot of familiar faces there. And like you said, I think everyone, wants to help their peers and others in the community succeed. And
yeah.
so that was great to see and super fun talking to everyone, meeting everyone, and really appreciated everyone's time and appreciate you tuning in as well here this week.
Yeah, and of course, it's always everyone when I think the session "Men with Mics" was a great. We may have to change that title to next year to that
Maybe, yeah,
because
when we post it, maybe we'll post it Men with Mics. Yeah, that was,
you hand these guys a mic, they all think they're comedians too. It's like, and they actually do a pretty good job of it. It's funny to say.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
So thanks everyone. Appreciate Al and Ian. Great job answering the remaining questions here, and also appreciate our panel here, the Titans of Wireless, for weighing in, giving their responses and feedback offline on these questions, so we could bring back and kind of wrap and put a bow on this one, I guess, so to speak here, and address
till
all the
next time.
remaining questions from this live event last week. But so. I guess with that, I'd like to remind everyone to go out to YouTube and where you found the channel and make sure you're subscribed. You go and turn on notifications, the little bell next to the subscribe button. You'll be notified when we do go live with new great content. like this and much more. And that's out at youtube.com/@getunplugged. Also, a reminder, you can see our upcoming episode schedule out there. Go check that out. Give us feedback. We love hearing from you. You can email us at getunplugged@cisco.com. Reach out to your account managers. I did talk to a customer at the concert last week, and they had said that they've reached out to their account team and were trying to get some slides and stuff from the previous episodes. I just said, reach out to me directly. Don't hesitate. You can always reach out to me directly. I'm on LinkedIn posting a lot of the stuff about this and much more, but also you can always email the show, getunplugged@cisco.com. We are on Twitter, X at unplugged80211, and Threads unplugged connectivity as well. So thank you everyone for the time. Love seeing everyone out in Vegas, and hope you're enjoying here the summer weather. But for those of us in the right hemisphere, I know we've got viewers from around the world. But thanks, and so I appreciate everyone. Until next time, stay connected and unplugged.